Hello to everyone logged on for this evening's webinar. We're going to get started in 5 minutes at the top of the hour. Hi, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for this evening's webinar, Actions to Increase Likability. As always, I love to start out these webinars by thanking Justin Gray and the amazing crew over at 99 The Agency for bringing me in to help all of you, the beautiful people out there in the entertainment industry, helping you with not only skills that will help you in your profession, but skills that help you in life. So, for those of you that have been in rooms with me before, welcome back. I'm always glad to have you here. I'm glad that you come back to my programs. I'm excited to have you. For those of you that are new or this is your first time in one of my rooms, welcome. I'm thrilled to have you as well and hope you enjoy the program. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Rob Hinds, and I have a company called Raise Your Lid Consulting. And what I do is I help people improve their communication, their mindset, their connection skills, how to deal with conflict. Tonight we're talking about likability. So I help people with what we consider non-technical skills that things like AI won't be able to do for us while we exist. So I'm a human connection, human skills person. Um, you could reach me on my website. However, at the end of this, I will be sharing all of my contact information. So at the end of the program, you'll be able to see that. Welcome aboard. Glad to have you this evening. As far as questions for the evening, for all of my programs, I encourage you, if you have a question about the material that we're talking about this evening, please feel free to put your questions into the Q&A or the chat, and I will absolutely answer everybody's question after we conclude with the program. And I've made sure to leave enough time so I could be able to answer your questions fully, or at least give you the best response possible. Because I may not have all of the answers, I'll do my best. One of the things that will help me with the answers, if you're asking something about a particular part of the presentation, please reference that in your question so I know exactly what you're asking about. And the other thing is, it's not necessary to tell me a long story or give a lot of background. Just ask your question directly and I'll be happy to answer it. If you would like, you're also welcome to put comments or any feedback you have into the Q&A and chat. But just know at the end of the program, I will only be reading um, online. I will be reading out loud the questions that are asked. So please ask away. I always look forward to your questions. Okay, this is the agenda for this evening. These are the 8 things that I'm going to talk a little bit in detail about. Um, all of these things are contributors to being likable. Now, there are a lot of things that people believe will help them be more likable. These are actually proven things that not only are valid because there's actual data around it, but they're really simple and applicable things. In order to be likable, you don't need to become this totally different person or change who you are or anything like that. These 8 things right here that we're going to talk about tonight are very simple and they're applicable in any way, shape, or form. It's also really important for me to share with you what likability is not. This is very important. And depending on your personality or even the personalities of the people that you work with, live with, deal with, whether personally or professionally, likability is not disregarding your own boundaries. It's not about giving up who you are. It's not about changing who you are. It's definitely not any of those things. That's what we call people pleasing. That's why when I put on here unhealthy people pleasing, there's a large percentage of our entire population that have challenges around people pleasing. And what people pleasing is, for those of you that may not know, people pleasing is when you do things to get people to like you that affect you negatively. So There may be some of you in the room this evening, or you know somebody that gives so much of themselves. They constantly give, 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 and they feel like it doesn't get reciprocated. They don't really feel like they get anything back, or they feel like they're taken advantage of. Now, for those people, they also have the ability to establish boundaries and stand up for themselves. But when people are deep into people pleasing, they actually affect themselves negatively to be liked. That's not what we're talking about. Okay. The first thing we're going to talk about tonight is asking purposeful questions. In order to be liked, yes, people do need to know a bit about us, maybe even a lot about us, depending on how you're building rapport with people. The one of the most key ways to be likable, for people to actually like you and want to be around you and want to connect with you more, is curiosity. Asking, and what I say, purposeful questions. Sometimes people think, okay, if I just ask a bunch of random questions or general questions, that'll get people to like me. The true secret sauce around curiosity is asking questions with a purpose. So the first thing we're going to talk about is having a point of focus, a point or a focus when asking questions. Instead of asking somebody something general like, how was your day? Which can make you generally likable. You can actually kick that up a notch and ask a more specific question. What about your day is going really well? Getting something specific without being pushy, without being invasive or digging too deep. There's always more layers to purposeful questions. The next part of this is showing genuine interest in others. When I say genuine, we all know these days, especially now more than ever, all of us have what I call a bullshit meter, and those meters are more dialed up than ever in all of us. So we detect when somebody's not being genuine or they're inauthentic or they're even fake to a certain extent. When you're able to show genuine interest in others by asking purposeful questions, that raises your level, that raises your ability to be liked. Also, giving people space, letting them have the spotlight. Now, all of us in the entertainment industry, we do have to put out there ourselves. We do have to talk about ourselves. We do have to market ourselves, regardless of where you're at in the entertainment industry, whether it's modeling, music, acting, behind the scenes, anything like that. We do need to promote ourselves. However, when it does come to being more likable, people wanting to have more interest in you and that sort of thing, letting them have the spotlight, or at least sharing the spotlight with them, is a really good idea. And then at the end of this, by asking purposeful questions, you just simply learn more about people. And the more we can learn about people, not only do we become more likable, we also become more adaptable. We start to learn people's personality styles, the way they like to communicate, um, whether they're talkative or shy, whether any of the things within human behavior that we could start to notice and learn about people, we can have a much better, much quicker connection with them simply by being curious and asking about them and learning about them. That's asking purposeful questions. Oof. This this one's a tough one for a lot of people, and many people don't understand there's actually a psychology about this. So when we talk about putting away your phone, if you and I are standing talking together and I pull the phone out of my pocket or I have my phone in my hand, right away that tells the other person, even unconsciously, even if they're not consciously thinking about it, it tells that other person that they're not the most important person right now. So for those of us that go out and we meet people or we're working on set, anything like that, anytime people's phones are out, subconsciously it's telling us that we're not the most important person or we're not the focus of them. Now, taking it to a next level, people that you meet, you're talking to, if they're even looking at their phone or they're playing with their phone or you know if they happen to be a room and they're looking at their phone ignoring type of thing, it can also be taken as a form of disrespect. So by keeping your phone away, I'm not saying it needs to be all the time. However, when you're really trying to become likable and you're curious about people, you want to show that you're focused on them. You also have a respect for them. It also shows other people that you do have a commitment to being attentive. You know, when I talked in the previous slide about being genuinely curious about people, part of being genuine is your ability to commit attention. Now, there's probably some of you in the room, and there's definitely people out there that attention spans really are difficult. Whether that comes through a diagnosis, something like an ADHD, or just short memory lapse, whatever that is. Regardless of that, if you could commit attention to people, putting away your phone is one of the good ideas because then it shows people that while you're in contact with them, you're all about them. I know this is really hard, and this is actually one of the things where people try to debate and use excuses and that sort of thing. I promise you there's some serious psychology behind it. So, putting away your phone, another way to become likable. There's certain things when we communicate with others that stand out with us as people. One of those things is hearing our name. When we hear our name, there's something within our brain and within our body chemistry that releases relief hormones or happy hormones or releases things in us. Now, of course, when we were little and our parents yelled our name because we did something wrong, that's not what I'm talking about. But when we talk about using people's names, it's within conversation, it's within context. When we could do those things, it helps make people feel valued, feel seen, feel heard, feel special. And realistically, all of us could use a little bit of that. Even those of us who are really confident, still a feel good thing to hear your name during a conversation. Now, when we meet new people, some people are really good at remembering names, some people are not. I will tell you this. If you happen to be one of those people to where names are really challenging for you, you can own it and let people know, you know what? I'm not the best right now with names. Can you please tell me your name again? And then one of the ways to start to remember it better, there's a philosophy out there. If you use somebody's name 3 times during a conversation or a little bit more without overusing it, you don't want to say their name after everything you do, but using their names 3+ times during a conversation gives your brain a better opportunity to remember it. It also builds rapport. When you greet people by name, when you use people's names, even when you introduce somebody, you know, Rob meet Jane, Jane meet Peter, whatever that looks like. So whenever you could use people's names to introduce one another, it helps build rapport with more people. And when it comes to being likable, building rapport, another term for building rapport is building trust. A lot of people talk about relationships. Relationships are long term. Building rapport is constant. And one good way to build rapport with people is by using their name. It also creates a closer, more personal connection. This one's pretty obvious. If I were to say, "Hey you," and I say it nicely, okay. If I were to say, "Hey, Margaret," it has a different feel, it has a different context. So it just creates closer, more personal connection. That's greeting people and addressing people by name. There's a there are some things that are universal. A smile is universal, regardless of language, regardless of culture, regardless of upbringing, regardless of background, regardless of social status, financial status, regardless of anything like that. A true, genuine smile is an immediate way to become likable or at least potentially likable. Now, here I've got a couple of creepy things, obviously making a joke here. You don't want to smile quite like this, but people also can tell when you're giving the fake or slightly fake or forced smile and you're giving a genuine smile. There's actually other things within your face, like the crinkles in your eyes and those types of things, that really tell if you're giving a true, genuine, authentic smile or not. And here's the thing. Smile doesn't cost you anything. It barely takes any energy. You don't even have to talk to people. If you're walking by somebody, look, we're out there, when we're out there in the public, people walking by, whether you're in a busy area or not, their heads are constantly down. Their heads are constantly down in their phones, or maybe they're shy, they don't make good eye contact, or they're not good at eye contact, whatever that is. When you make eye contact with somebody and you actually give them a genuine, nice, not creepy smile like this, but a genuinely nice smile, it immediately puts things into people's minds, into people's hearts, into their system, and you could become more likable. Out of all these things, this is the simplest thing to do, and it's one of the things people don't do often enough. So simple, applicable, smile. For all of us here in the entertainment industry, this is a tough one. Now, remember, our job as entertainers is to get attention, to seek attention, to have people regard us, to have people respect us, to have people hire us, use us, whatever. We're not talking about that. We're talking about likability, being likable. So, with likability, don't seek attention. Because what happens is the more we make things about us, the less we make things about other people. And as we've already learned through this presentation, if you want to connect with people, be curious, smile, ask questions, all of those things come together. But when you're the person constantly seeking attention, it reduces people's interest in you. And when people are less interested in you, you're less likable automatically. It's also an indication of low social intelligence. Now, of all the programs I do for 99 The Unagency, I do a program on emotional intelligence and I also do a program on social intelligence. So, if you have low social intelligence, which means you're not as good as you think you are interacting with people, and there's a lot of behaviors around it, that's not this program, but when you have a low level of social intelligence, that's one way to decrease your likability. It also diminishes rapport or the trust you're trying to build with people. For people that are constantly seeking attention, they make everything about them. They spend very little time or very little interest in you. You actually kind of diminish your trust in them. You don't just diminish your interest in them, you kind of don't trust them because they're not learning anything about you. And people who aren't learning anything about you, it's really hard to trust those people. So don't seek attention. All right. This is a very interesting thing. Know who to touch and when to touch, if at all. So, personally, depending on culture and family and that sort of thing, I happen to come from a really deep Italian background and we're huggers generally. So, within my family and even with close friends and that sort of thing, we hug. Um, of course, in a professional setting, we have to be more mindful of those types of things. But just remember this, that in order to be likable, we have to respect boundaries of others. I'm hoping that all of you on this journey with me tonight, I'm hoping all of you have strong or at least decent boundaries for yourself. Now we're talking about respecting other people's boundaries. You know, if you happen to just meet somebody for the first time and you're a hugger, I wouldn't recommend running up and hugging them. So some of the things, knowing who to touch and when to touch, respect for boundaries is one. Then there's also the right moments with the right people for the right purpose. Um, for those of you that may be familiar, there's 5 love languages that generally people have. And out of those love languages, personal touch is one of them. There are also people that personal touch is not okay. It's not comfortable. So when we say respecting people's boundaries, that's one thing. Then also the right moment with the right people at the right time for the right purpose. You know, if somebody happens to have won an award and, one of the things that we can do to find out if it's the right moment, the right people, and the right purpose, sometimes if we're unsure, we may ask permission. Is it okay if I give you a hug? I'm so happy for you. Or it may just be, you reach out your hand, you give a handshake, a fist bump. Some people that really don't like to be touched and you sense that, you might give them a wave or a thumbs up or some non-physical way to touch, to be liked, that sort of thing. Now, knowing who to touch and when to touch, it can create closer connection if used improperly or if self-awareness isn't there. It can actually work against you. So the touching part, it's definitely a small segment of this, but knowing who to touch and when to touch, very, very important to think about, especially when you want to become more likable. Follow the platinum rule. Most of us in this room have heard of something of the golden rule. It's been around forever. It still has some relevance. It's also very self-absorbed. So the golden rule, as we've all learned, says treat people like you want to be treated. When we're looking to be likable, or even when we're looking to communicate better with others, there's something I encourage people to elevate to from the golden rule, because the golden rule is all about you. Treat people like you would want to be treated. The platinum rule says treat people the way they would like to be treated. That's when you become more likable. Connect in ways that people want to connect with you. If you happen to be a talker and you may be talking to somebody very shy or very quiet or very low energy, if you could adapt and meet them where they're at or close to where they're at, you have a better way of becoming likable and making better connection with them. So following the platinum rule is very simple. Connect with people the way they want to be connected with or communicated with. And those things will help you become more likable. The goal here of harmonizing passion and fun, it's a lot of times it's a personality thing. There are some people that like to create humor or make a joke about everything. And then there's some people that maybe they're not rigid. They could be rigid, but maybe humor just isn't their thing, or it's not something that's a turn on to them, or something that they connect well with people. So when it comes to harmonizing passion and fun, this is where we really need to pay attention to people's cues and read people a little bit. So the first thing here is timing and subject matter of humor. A lot of times I'll think something's funny, maybe not the other person. So again, as we're talking about likability, is the timing of the humor appropriate? And is the subject matter of the humor appropriate? Now, potentially with people you're close with, maybe you have some deep dark humor, or specific things that you laugh about, or poke fun at each other, that sort of thing. And then there's other people to where maybe that's not the right thing to do. So timing and subject matter of humor is very important when you're really trying to harmonize passion and fun. The next piece of this is levels of energy. So there may be some of you in the room that are extremely optimistic, positive, very, very happy, very fulfilled, lots of energy. You like to move fast, you like to talk fast. And then there's some of you in the room that may be the opposite of that. Super chill, super low key. This is where, when we notice that the levels of energy may differ, this is where us adapting really comes into play when we want to become likable. Now, it's not saying if somebody comes in at a 9 on the energy level and you're at a 2, you need to go up all the way to a 9. It may be somewhere to where, you mutually meet in the middle. Maybe you raise your level from a 2 to a level 5. So if you could adjust those energy levels, and you'll hear me talk about energy levels in different programs that I do. But when it comes to being likable, especially, um, just notice if there's a difference in the levels of energy, or some people call it passion. When somebody's really passionate about something, they have a certain energy level. If they're not passionate about something, they'll have a certain energy level. Are you paying attention to that? Can you read that and adjust appropriately? And then there's just simply appropriate behavior per situation. Um, there are just some subjects that may not be appropriate in certain situations. And then in other situations, those subjects may be perfectly fine. So when it comes to appropriate behavior, this is where, when I mentioned social intelligence earlier, part of social intelligence is reading the room, reading the vibe, reading the people, reading energy, reading communication styles. And when we could do that, we could start to adjust to be more appropriate with our behavior. That's harmonizing passion and fun. Now, normally in the majority of the programs that I do, I like to give you good tips, good information, things that are applicable and simple for you to walk away with. I also like to share what it looks like on the opposite of what I'm teaching. So tonight, it's about being likable. So here's some unlikable actions or habits, really things to avoid. It may not be things that you should never do or completely just eliminate, but these are things that actually contribute to you being more unlikable, whether you realize it or not. The first thing is something we just talked about previously, a mismatch in energy. If you're on a level 8, somebody's at a level 2, and you continue to be at that level 8 and you overwhelm them, chances are you're going to be less likable. Things like humble bragging, or just straight out bragging. These are unlikable actions or habits. Again, being in the entertainment industry, yes, we do have to promote ourselves. We even have to be really confident. You know, there's a difference between humble confidence and straight out bragging, being having a large ego, um, having, a hierarchical thought about yourself, you're better than other people. So when it comes to things like humble bragging, keeping that at a minimum will help you be more likable. The more you brag, the more you promote yourself in situations where you want to be likable, it's less it's less likely. Things like name dropping. And within the entertainment industry, this is a pretty prominent one and it's a tough one. And people don't realize that name dropping is actually something that contributes to being less likable. Now, name dropping when you're giving a referral or referring somebody or speaking highly of somebody, that's different. When you're using name dropping to build yourself up, that's when that particular action becomes unlikable. Gossiping, I really don't think I need to get into gossiping too much. Anybody that gossips, immediately they're unlikable. Now, the gossipers, they think that when people dig into the gossip with them, that they're cohesive, but really what you're showing people is, okay, if they gossip about other people, are they also gossiping about me? So gossiping is a massively unlikable habit. Emotional hijacking or instability. For those of you that have been part of my emotional intelligence program, self-regulation or regulating and managing how the emotions come out of you is a big deal. Something like emotional hijacking is where we take the vibe from people, whether they're happy, sad, excited, frustrated, whatever that is. When we emotionally hijack, that's when we turn things around and make it about us. And it also shows that there's a level of instability in us. So that's an unlikable action or a habit. Being closed-minded. People that are closed-minded, they're not open to listening, they're not opening to learning, they're not open to perspective. People that are closed off or have a fixed mindset, it's really hard to be likable if people are trying to gravitate to you or find some common ground and you're closed-minded. Really, really difficult to be likable. The people that are judgmental, this is a big one. It's it's really easy to be judgmental. It's actually natural to be judgmental, but when we are judgmental, um, that's an extremely unlikable habit. People who share too much too early. This is also a social intelligence thing. When it comes to likability, I guess I'll put it into an example. Have you ever met somebody that within the first 30 seconds of meeting them, they've told you about their three divorces, how bad their kids are, their money problems, their personal health issues, that sort of thing. Now, respectfully, that may be some of you in the room that do that. Just know that by sharing too much too early, it actually creates distance between you and other people and makes you less likable. Things like showing too much on your online channels. It's tough. We live in the world of what I call emotional broadcasting. People will put every thought they have, every feeling they have, everything they like and don't like, and why they like and don't like it, who they agree with, who they disagree with, that sort of thing. When people show too much on their online channels, they're only going to be fairly likable to the people that think and act just like them. For anybody else, you become less likable. So when it comes to things like emotional hijacking that we talked about earlier, showing too much too early, being judgmental, showing too much on your online channels, those are all ways to become less likable. All right. Just to give a recap before we get into the questions, First thing we talked about this evening was ask purposeful questions. Basically, be curious about others, learn about others. The more you show curiosity and genuine interest in others, the more likable you can become. Put away your phone, or at the least, even if it's not your phone, be less distracted. The more focused you could be when you're with people, the more you have the ability to become likable. Greet and address people by name. There's lots of things that are an immediate spark, turn on, get people inspired. Hearing their name is one of those things. So using people's names is a very good thing. Smile. Genuinely smile. Now, I understand sometimes we have a bad day or things may not be going well, that sort of thing, but we're talking about likability, being likable. One of the quickest, simplest, easiest, best ways is just to genuinely smile at people. Plus, with a smile, again, like I said earlier, you don't even need to interact deeply with people. Shoot them a smile, and a natural instinct when smiled at, a natural instinct is to smile back or even smile to yourself if you happen to be a little bit shy. Um, if you'll notice, the people that have really grown a high level of skepticism, they'll actually take a smile in the opposite context, which is absolutely crazy. I've smiled at people recently, and I could just tell they're not having their best life for sure. They almost took the smile as a what are you looking at type of thing, instead of just taking it for what it was a nice gesture. So smile. Don't seek attention. The more you make it about you, the less you're showing interest in others. I normally tell people this. You can be interesting and you could be interested. My recommendation, and it's actually shown through human behavioral data and those types of things, if you could be interested first, your chances of being interesting increase massively. So don't seek attention. Know who to touch and when to touch them. This is something that, like I said, it's one of those minuscule things. Is somebody up for a fist bump or a high five or a hug or not? So you would determine by reading the people what they would prefer. Follow the platinum rule, treat people the way they would want to be treated. The golden rule is treat people the way you would want to be treated. The platinum rule, treat people the way they would like to be treated. Communicate with them the way they would like to be communicated with. Connect with them the way they would like to be connected with. And then the last thing we talked about this evening, harmonize the passion and fun. Match your energy levels the best you can. Um, be very, very careful about the way you use humor. Even the way you say things, the way you speak. Again, you don't need to change who you are as a person or your personality, but you can definitely adapt those things to to become more likable with others. All right. As I normally like to do with the majority of my programs, I'm offering you a QR code here. If you scan this QR code, it'll take you to an outline of the things we talked about tonight. So if you're interested in keeping this information, if you didn't happen to take notes or anything like that, you can get an outline of this program by scanning this QR code. And while all of you are doing that, I'm going to check the Q&A in chat and see if we have any questions. Okay. Kai, it looks like Kai has a question. Kai, as always, I you've come to several of my events, maybe just about all of my events. I always appreciate you. You always come up with good questions. So thank you. Always glad to have you. Tonight, Kai asks, hey again, Rob. What if someone who doesn't like everybody calling them by their government name and prefer a nickname? Perfect. So if somebody's calling you by your government name or you're doing that to somebody else, let them know. Say, you know what? For example, my name is Robert. I prefer Rob. So, Kai, to answer your question, if somebody's using your government name or a name that you don't prefer, just let them know what you prefer. Say, you know what? Instead of calling me Robert, please call me Rob. Now, if they persist and they're being cheeky about it and that sort of thing, that would come into, a conflict type of scenario. But realistically, if somebody's calling you by your government name and you want them to use a nickname or something like that, just let them know to do that. Great question. Okay. Well, Kai, you came back right away and said, and also, what if you're one of those people? So if you happen to be one of those people that are using somebody's name and they don't like it, ask them what their preference is. What would you prefer me to call you? So, I'm calling you Robert. What would you prefer me to call you? And again, just ask. For a lot of those situations, to everybody in the room, and Kai especially, whenever you're noticing something or you need something to change or you need a dynamic to adjust, ask questions. So hopefully that helped. Okay. Let's see. If you're not good at remembering everyone's name, is it good to give a person a nickname that's universally comfortable? Chances are not necessarily. Not everybody appreciates nicknames or the notion of a nickname. So if you just choose to give somebody a nickname, most likely the best thing to do would be to ask permission. You know what? I'd like to refer to you as this. Are you okay with that? And again, getting buy-in, getting permission with people, plus you're showing a little bit of curiosity by asking a question, but just outright giving somebody a nickname that you choose, most likely not a good idea. Now, when it comes to not being good at remembering everyone's name, this is where courage comes into play. You could politely say, I completely forgot your name. Would you tell me your name again? I would really appreciate it. So, you could bridge that gap. It is a little bit uncomfortable, but when you have the courage to step up and own it, let people know, you know what? I'm currently not good with remembering names. Would you mind giving me your name again? Most people will be okay with that. Now, if you forget their name 10 times, then that's on you. Then you're not paying enough attention to remember their name. I hope that was helpful. Okay. Okay. Well, Brittany didn't ask a question, but you made a statement. Thank you for your statement, Brittany. I appreciate you. I'm glad you're here. You said you're new to my workshop. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Thank you very much for being here. Okay. And for all of you, here's all the ways you can learn about me, reach me, that sort of thing. Those are my social channels. If you do scan this QR code, it takes you to my bio site to where you can find out more information about me. And before I sign off for the evening, I'm going to take one last check to see if we have any new questions. No, it looks like that's it for this evening. Everybody, I'm so grateful for you being here. Hopefully you enjoyed the presentation. Be sure to look on the 9/9 calendar and see when I have things coming up. I would love to have you back in the room. I hope you all have an amazing rest of your week. I look forward to seeing you in a room soon. Take care, everybody. Good night.